Welcome to our Week 2 What Would You Do presentation. This presentation is presented by Brian Frauenthal, Julian Edwards, and Kia Ellis. For our presentation, the What Would You Do initial problem that we chose is from Chapter 4 in our textbook. You are a webmaster for a site that caters to young children. What measures must you take to ensure that your website does not violate the Children's Online Protection Act? Some of the basics on the Privacy Protection Act is that a child is defined as someone who's under the age of 13. A parent can be any legal guardian. That could be a power of attorney, a grandparent who's taking care of the child, or anyone who's taking care of the child. The site must provide notice of what information is gathered from children. The site must also collect information and make it readily available, if the site does collect that information. If parental consent is not gained, the information must not be kept within a reasonable amount of time. This means that we cannot hold on to the information if the parents have not given consent. Data can be collected if it is to protect the security or integrity of the website. It can also be kept if it's used to protect against liability or to respond to the judicial process. So this gives us a clear baseline for the information that can and will and needs to be recorded. So our basic problem statement is children under the age of 13 are protected by the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and a review is needed to ensure that we are complying. Failure to ensure we are complying could result in a maximum fine of $42,530 per incident. That means if there's multiple incidents, each instance of that incident could result in a fine. So each time the child logs into our website, we could potentially get a fine of $42,530. After identifying our problem statement, we then looked at identifying our alternates. This would be identifying people who would help us make any decision related to the problem. These stakeholders would be our lawyers because they are familiar with the laws and regulations of the state. We also want to go ahead and enlist our web team, our security team, as well as our server team, so that they could look at potential solutions and help identify areas where we can improve. The other areas that we'd want to look at is with our business and financial analysts. They would be needed in order for us to make a good financial decision as far as what solutions to take and what the cost-benefit analysis would be, and potentially look at SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Possible alternatives that we could come up with from that group were ignore the problem and hope that we never get fined. We could correct some of the issues and hope that that mitigates some of the fines that we would incur, and potentially lower our risk. The third and final choice would be to change any issues on the website that we can find, so that we are in compliance and that we do not have the risk of a huge fine that may come our way later on. This would be more of a long-term strategy. The ignoring the problem and correcting some of the issues would be more of a short-term solution to the problem, as they don't solve the long-term problem of a potential fine. From our list of alternates that we gathered, we then want to see what the best alternative is. In order to do that, we want to look at any problems and issues that may arise from each of the solutions. And to understand what the ethical dilemmas may be with each problem. The first one was ignoring the problem and hoping that we never get fined. The thing that we have to understand is whether or not we think it's ethical to actually collect information on children and use that information for profit. And we also have to look at the potential risk of a $42,000, $530 fine and decide whether or not it's worth it, especially when you see a global company like Google who's had to pay $170 million. And then we have to evaluate whether or not the cost to fix that website is actually greater than our potential risk. So understanding the cost-benefit analysis between the two. We also need to try to fix, the second solution would be to try to fix some of the issues on the website. So would the partial measures even help? If the child's still able to access it, would this even be a viable option? Would fixing some of the issues or part of the issues protect us? So if we're able to fix some of the issues and the children aren't able to get in, would that potentially be a solution? The third and final option was to fix the website entirely. How much is wrong with our site? We have to figure out. We also have to figure out what additional service space would be required if we have to save customer information on the various children who access our accounts. We also need to add in parental controls. Adding in these parental controls could be a possible solution to children accessing our website that aren't supposed to be. After evaluating our alternatives, we want to make a decision based on which decision would be best for our company, both ethically as well as legally. The decision that we decided to go with was decision number 3. We decided to implement this decision because it far outweighs the other two. We will review the website for any infringements. Our legal team will work with our web developers to ensure compliance. The potential loss that we may incur far outweighs any potential gain to ignoring the problem because each incident is a multiplier to the fine. Thus, any fines that we do incur would be a large sum of money. We also don't want to be a company represented by unethical decisions to collect data on children without their consent, especially since children are unable to make full, comprehensive decisions on their own. The potential changes needed to our website that we came up with would be adding an age questionnaire when accessing the page. So when the children log on to our website for the first time, it would verify their age and ask them if they are under 13, whether or not they have consent from an adult. We would verify this consent by sending an email to their parent and having them send back a request for authorization. If a user says that they are underage, the site will load a message denying access and will request this information. And there will be a cookie designed so that until we receive that verification email, they won't be able to access the site. Any users over 13 will still operate our site as previously designed once they answer that security question. So our company can evaluate the results and make sure that we're complying with the laws and regulations and doing a good job of keeping children under the age of 13 out of our site. We will do 3 different things. We'll assess that the correction have been made sufficiently by using a test group within our worksite that will check that all regulations are met and safeguards are active. We will also impart the use of a focus group. A panel of children of various ages will be used to ensure that the proper safeguards are in place and that children are using the website as designed. An internal review of data collected will also be checked after weeks 1 month, and 3 months to ensure data is being stored correctly. They will also test the functionality and capabilities of pulling data for any regulatory boards. This will ensure that we're complying with that state regulation to have information readily available.